Hi, welcome to this week's R&K Software Club's video of the week. My name's Trevor Conquergood, and I'd like to introduce you guys to Mr. Matthew Wilson, who works at R&K Distributing, and he is in charge of software technical support. And so, hi, Matt, how's it going today?
It is going good. How about you?
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Matthew. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to you on behalf of all of the people that you've worked with over this past year. I know that many people, when I go out and travel, tell me I got a response from Matthew just, an hour after I sent it, and even on a Sunday. So I know that you have a young family, and we all appreciate what you do to help people even after hours when you can. So yeah, thanks so much, Matt. Anyway, thank you for coming on. I thought it would be fun to record with you and just let everybody kind of meet. So Matthew works in Knoxville in our office in R&K Distributing. And so if you've ever called the office and looked for technical support for the software, you may have spoken to Matthew. Or if the best way to get us is the support tickets. Would you agree, Matt?
Yes, putting in a support ticket or emailing tech support at rnkdistributing.com.
Right. Email's
Either
nice,
way, those are the two best ways.
Yeah. The emails, the support ticket's the one that I like, because if it ever gets kind of complicated and Matthew wants to ask for my help, then it's really easy for him to literally just reassign the ticket over to me, and then we're like both on it kind of thing. And so if you guys send a reply, then it kind of like alerts us both, and it's a cool system, so we really like it. Anyway, Matthew, thank you so much for doing it. And I guess one of the things we talked about kind of recording would be, do you have any suggestions of things, like what are the hot topics that people want to learn about? I thought you might have some suggestions. So what do you got?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we get a lot of questions about is the Auto Digitizing Wizard. A lot of people say, I have an image and I really want to turn this into a design. What are the best ways to get the most out of the Auto Digitizing Wizard?
Good question. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Matthew. That's a hard one to answer in a support ticket, isn't it? It's like there's a lot of typing involved in there. So a video is going to go a long way. Really, to me, the Auto Digitizing Wizard is a really cool thing, because, of course, what it means is you're taking a picture, like an image. And an image is generally made up of dots of colors. There's not any specific shapes involved. The software has to kind of like really create everything from scratch. And it's fully automatic. There's actually two options. We can do sort of like the basic Auto Digitizer, or there's now a new one that we introduced more recently called the advanced one. And really both ones, the advanced one just gives a little bit more control, over the process, and they both work. Sometimes one gives a better result than the other. Anyway, so I thought I would be more than happy to kind of go through it with you guys, just how to use the Auto Digitizer. But there's two things I want to say, Matt. And one is it really depends on where good enough fits in your vocabulary. And because what I mean by that is when you do auto digitizing, you get a really quick result. It's like pop up your image and, 2 or 3 kind of questions pages later, and then you have a design, sometimes in just less than a minute. But sometimes the software doesn't get it right, and it's got options that, you as a person understand, I really wanted it to be a different way. And so it kind of depends on where, if it's easy for you to say that's good enough, you'll get a lot of use out of the Auto Digitizer. If you're really fussy and you want everything to be just so, then you're going to spend more time editing, and that's really what it is. And at some point in time, as a professional digitizer, right, like when I make the designs for our software club, I don't auto digitize them. That's the part that I like to do, because it gives me full control, right? And so we'll kind of look at all that. So let's go ahead and share my screen and kind of go through it. Sound good?
Sounds good. Yeah.
All right. So what I did was I went and found an image, and I guess the other thing, so the other thing I wanted to say about it is you'll get more use out of the auto digitizer the more you understand the basics. So really learning the basics is not negated just because you've got a wizard, because really making changes to the things that the wizard does requires a good understanding of the basics, right? And so it all kind of comes down to, do you understand how the software works? And there are some good videos that I would direct somebody to, you know, as far as getting started. Certainly if you I've done some nice ones that I could share with you guys on our YouTube channel or something like that. They're longer classes that I call my getting started classes, and they'd be a great place to start. Perhaps I can get them posted into the club, you know, and just get them in there. They're new ones that I made just last year. Okay, so what I'm going to show, so here's your wizard hat. It's up here. Here, my zoom menu's in the way. Let me move this down. Okay, it's this little tool right up here. You know, the other thing I can do, Matthew, is I'm just going to put a little yellow ring around my cursor right now because we're recording live. I won't have that ability to kind of add it in later, and so all I did was put on a little yellow ring so that it's easier for you guys to follow me. It has nothing to do with Floriani, that little yellow ring, by the way. It's not a new feature of the software. It's a program that I use when I teach sometimes. So just in case somebody's going to email you, how do I get the yellow ring on my cursor? It's called pointer focus. I think I paid $5. I'm not sure. I can't even remember. Okay, click on the wizard hat. And there are actually several automated wizards that you can take an image and convert it into cross stitch, into kind of like, and this is the original photo stitch wizard. You know, we've replaced that with our new photo to stitches, which is over here. And so I don't know that there's really a lot of people that still use the original photo stitch wizard. Maybe we should clean it up and just take it out of there, because it's not as good as the new one. They're not even kind of comparable, to be honest. However, there's an auto artwork wizard. So auto artwork will basically take your picture and convert it into artwork shapes, but won't put any thread in it. Then you've got the auto digitizing, and this is, I think, what they're asking you about is there's auto digitizing wizard, the original, and then the purple one is auto digitizing advanced. They're very similar. The advanced one just has more options in terms of what you can, how you can influence the design when you make it. So let's go for the full meal deal and just go through the advanced tool. And what it does is it gives you a browse window where you can sort of navigate your computer. And I'm just looking like at my desktop where I've got an image here of some clip art. And so this is the other kind of thing that I think people can kind of do to help themselves out is when you're auto digitizing, if you have an image that has easy to see shapes, it's easier for the software, right? This is, you can see right away that I've got a white picture. It's got green leaves, red berries, the words Merry Christmas. It's pretty logical, right? The software can see it. And so it's going to be highly successful in a design like this. And it does get more complicated as you get into kind of like full fill, full color. You know, certainly it's not really great at taking a little white poodle and converting it into embroidery design that looks like a poodle. Like if you've got a photograph of a poodle, that's probably the hardest for the software, all those shades of white, and it's supposed to figure out where the light, what, you know, it doesn't know that it's a poodle is the problem. So here, it really, what I'm saying is it just sees colors, and it wants to, this first step is about reducing the colors. And so because I didn't have a lot of colors to start out with, it doesn't give me a ton of options. It does show more than one shade of red. And if you're like, actually, I'm just going to go with all one shade of red, you can select the one you select first is the one that it keeps. And then you hold your control key down and click on the other one. And so I have two red selected, and now I can use this little green button here to say merge colors. And so, you know, basically I'm going forward with white, red, and green. And so that's the first window. It's like choosing the colors of your design. And like I said, if you're trying to do a photograph of a rose, there might be a lot of shades in here, and it's a lot more challenging for the software to, you know, figure out how to make it look like a rose. So, you know, I'm not saying you can't do more complicated pieces, Matt. I'm just saying you're going to make it a lot easier on yourself if you feed it something like this. How's that? Just
Right.
this is still
Right.
going to give us some challenges. So yeah. Okay. So now it's thinking, and anytime the little spinning wheel is spinning, the software may say at the top, not responding. But that's not true. It doesn't mean it's not going to respond. The spinning wheel means I'm still thinking. You know, that's what it should say here, not it shouldn't say not responding. It should say still working.
Right.
So what I always like to say to people is if the spinning wheel is spinning, that's not a good time to start clicking. You know, that'll because it's likely to confuse the software if you start trying to give it new commands when it's still doing the previous one. And so right now, the auto digitizer is like processing all of the shapes, including the white backgrounds and everything like this. And so it takes some time. It can take longer than others. And I think that's going to depend on kind of the speed of your computer, right? Like what kind of math coprocessor you got, that kind of thing, and how many other processes it's currently doing. Like it's sometimes when I'm recording, it's a little harder on my computer. There, it's done. Because not only is it you know, processing this math that, you know, all the math it takes to auto digitize all these shapes and choose what kind of thread they get and fill them all in with thread. On top of all that, my computer's like running, you know, recording a video and web streaming. And so, you know, the less you got your computer doing, you know, kind of the faster it goes. How's that?
Sure.
We've got to second step now. And in this window, it's called the vectorizing step. And really, it's got a slider that you can bring back and forth. And you will find with certain images that it picks up elements that it doesn't. And it's, I always like to say, it's kind of like a tolerance for how strictly shall it trace the shapes. But there's more to it than that, because there will be times where elements of the design will get kind of like brought out if you make it more or less. So just try, if you're not sure you got the results you want, you can slide this around a little bit. Usually for me, it's kind of just fine with when I do something like this, I don't need to make an adjustment. All I need to do is say next, I guess is the point. So, but there are times when I might. So now we're at a stage where you definitely want to take some control. And this is where the new auto digitizer got, I think, a little bit cooler. So notice all of the shapes of the design are listed on the right here. There's all the green ones, all the red ones, and all the white ones. Now, the white ones, I'm probably not planning on stitching white, but I left it in the design because if I try and take white out of the design, the software ends up trying to convert the color white into like green or red. So you actually, when you use the simpler auto digitizer, you can take the white out and it voids it. But with this one, the benefit here is, and I think a lot of people have probably experienced this, you might have a design that has a white background, but it also has white on the, you know, maybe it's a snowman and he's got like white eye shine on his eyeballs. And so telling the software to not do white is like going to take all the white out. So the point is here, you can keep some of the white if you want it. See, what you can't really see, and I'll just show you, if I click on one of these colors, pieces of white, so there's like what, maybe 12 of them. I see the little button here that says isolate selection. So
Right.
when I click on that, it actually shows me what that piece is. And as I click on them, I can be like, oh, that's that piece. And there's this piece. And so those are little pieces of white that are like inside of letters kind of thing. And then eventually I'll get to the one big one. So it'll be more noticeable to you. There's the one that's like the kind of the main one. One way or another, I'm not planning on doing white. And so I can actually just remove it by clicking on this little X here. So if I X all of the white pieces, and this is what I'm saying, there may be a time when you're doing a snowman and you want some of the white pieces, not, you know, you need to get rid of a few of them, but not all of them. In this design, no, we want to get rid of all the white. And then this is another thing that's like way cool about the new auto digitizer. So now I'm going to find like the Merry Christmas part. One of the things that we did find after kind of creating this new tool was that I think the request that we put in was to be able to select the areas by clicking over here as opposed to clicking over in here. So you may find that we get an update, you know, in the software at some point that kind of like tweaks the process a little bit. Because right now, to find these sections, you kind of click on the right and it shows you on the left what you've selected, right? And so I guess what I wanted to show was, it says, so let's click on this one, and it says it's going to make it fill. Now, this is where understanding the software kind of comes in, because if I click on this, I got choices. So fill was only one of the choices. I could also do a run, a steel, a fill, or a satin. So run would make it like a run outline, you know, and that's not really what I had in mind, but it might be kind of cool in some designs. And steel would make like a satin outline. So it's, again, not really even kind of fully appropriate, I think, here. But the one that I wanted, so fill was the default. And you know what a fill is? If somebody asks you, like, what's the difference between the fill and the satin, the fill is parallel. It can be any stitch direction, but it's just one direction. So the whole word Merry Christmas as a fill would be flat, like one fill angle for every little piece of it. But when we do letters like that, we usually use a satin, because the satin allows the turning of stitches. So now you can have different directions that goes around the letters. You're going to look way better. So I can tell it, yeah, I want this to be a satin. In fact, probably most of this red I want to do as a satin. The cool thing is, if you don't do it now, you can always do it later. Right away, you noticed something when I changed it to satin. You know, the A looks confused. It is, the software is confused at that point. The only way I'm going to be able to fix that is to go after the auto digitizing and find why it's the whole of the A got closed in, because at this stage there's no kind of fine tuning about that. So what I'm saying is, you do the best you can with the auto digitizer, and then you either sort of fix the little things you don't like, or you live with them, right? You know, I'm not going to live with the whole of my A fill. Then that one, I know how to fix it. I'm going to show you guys. It'll be easy. So you could go through and do all of the pieces of the design, right? It's like, well, you know what, that one looks like it would be a satin too, right? So let's make that one a satin, and that one probably too, also a satin. And so you kind of click through all the little pieces of your design. Okay, the little berries, maybe those are okay as fills. If you want to change them to satins, you can always do it later. Anyhow, it's not like this is our last chance to edit these things. It's just that it's part of this window. So again, now you've got the leaves. And again, I think I'll just leave them as fill, because I'm going to show you a whole nother thing about the leaves once we get them done. So basically, that's all I would do at this stage, is just kind of change those little things from fills to satins, and then say next. So this last sort of stage of the design gives you the ability to add outlines. So if you wanted like run stitch outlines around elements of your designs, you would click right here, and it's going around and putting a new color in the design that outlines everything. If you don't want the outline, then you just simply don't add it here. Same thing with the border. That'll put like a frame around your design, like a big border kind of thing. And if you want that, great. If you don't want it, just uncheck it. One last step. So when you say next, it kind of shows you what it's looking like. And you can be like, yeah, that's okay. I already know the A's got some problems. You know, we'll see what we can do about it later, kind of thing, because at this stage, there's not much more I can do. And the only purpose of this window is to show you the results. And if you don't like something, you're like, oh, I forgot I was going to do something. You can still go back, you know, and kind of interact and keep going back to the next stage and the next stage, and then forward until you're, yeah, now I've got it. And then you finish, right? So, I mean, I talked and talked, Matt, I can do that in a minute. Like you don't have to explain anything. You just go click, 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 boom, you have an embroidery design, you know, and it gives a pretty good result. But that said, there's clearly something wrong with the letter A, you know, and I'm fussy. When it comes right down to it, I know that there's other things that I'll probably want to fix if I get right in there too, you know, and the closer I look, the more I'll find. But that said, like I said earlier, depends on where good enough fits in your vocabulary, right? If you fix the A up, you might be like, well, that's fine. A few things. Okay. So I'm looking at the letters here, and I know that I told it to be a satin, but if I select, so okay, first things first, if I try and select this, it's going to select the whole design. So we'll need to ungroup it, and that's right here. And once you've ungrouped it, if you click on the empty workspace, you can come back and click on like a part of the design. And that whole, if you look in the sequence, that whole word, Merry Christmas, all of that is one segment. So if you know much about the software, you know that what's really happened is it's a bunch of little pieces that have been combined together, right? And if we really wanted to micromanage this thing, we could break it apart. But if we break that apart, we're going to have a lot of work to do to putting it back together again. We don't really want to break it apart, right? It's like, can we fix it just as it is because it works? Everything's really pretty good, Trev, other than that stupid center of the A. That's the main thing that I don't like. There is a funny little stitch here that we could talk about too. Okay. The A. So first things first, when I looked at it, I selected it and I noticed that it's, even though the stitches are all turning, like I said, it's still using a fill pattern. And if I measure like across the column here, it's only, 0.14 of an inch. If I do that in metric, because sometimes for the small stuff, it just makes more sense to me. It's only 3 millimeters across, and at 3 millimeters across, I think a satin stitch would work better. So I wanted the satin path, but then the software put a pattern on it, and I'm saying change it to be a satin pattern so that it doesn't have the extra stitches in between. So it's going through and regenerating all the stitches. And so now they're satins. Can you see that? And they look a little bit cleaner. Okay, so that would be step number one. Now, again, coming back to this, what the heck happened there, right? So when you learn about the satin path tool, right? And if I just break it down and maybe draw a rectangle here. So that's a piece of artwork, right? And the tool we're talking about are these ones down here on the bottom. This whole group are what we call satin path. You can do an auto satin or a regular satin. You can do a jagged edge satin and a blended satin and a spiral satin and a contour satin and all these different kinds of satins. But if I do auto, the software puts the stitching in and chooses the stitch inclinations for me. I'm going to hit undo. If I select it and choose the one on the left, then it breaks it down. And it says, you draw the inclinations. It gives you one. But if I want to be like, yeah, I want it to go from that stitch direction over to that stitch direction. So I've given it like changing stitch angles. And now when I right click, it allows me to interact with the green entry and the red exit. I can choose where they go. And if I right click again, it'll make the stitches. And so the whole point is that understanding how this tool works and how you can select it and go into the shape mechanism and then change the inclinations and right click and add new inclinations. And this understanding is essential to being able to fix the letter A, is what I'm telling you. You have to know how to do what I'm showing you. And what you really need to know about is the split lines. So what if we wanted to make this shape have more than one stitch direction? Okay, what I want to show you is right click and see, I know I can add inclinations, but I can also add a split line. And this is the key. The split line, when I draw a split line, so I'm going to draw a split line right there. Right click. Now I'm done. Now the software will treat everything on the right side of the split line and everything on the left side of the split line like two different pieces. So notice that I can change the direction of the stitches on the left, and it doesn't change the ones on the right. I can bring the ones on the right and go like this, and they're like totally different directions along that split line. Does that make sense? So you need to understand all of that to be able to fix this. So this is where I like to say sometimes the automatic stuff isn't the best place to start with the software, because if you haven't learned the satin path tool, you're going to be confused with what to do with the A. Now, when I select this shape and I go to the shape tool, I need to zoom in on the A. Sometimes I'll even turn 3D off so that I can see like a little more clearly what's going on. And I'm looking for, it's the split lines, you guys. Like I know with my heart that it's going to be one of these orange split lines that's caused the hole in the center of the A to not be a hole. And all I have to do is figure out, like, regardless of what it is, I don't even like the split lines. Now that I'm looking at them, I'm like, well, actually, I would probably have split it over here like that, not here, but there, right? That would make a more logical place to split. Maybe that's it. Hit enter and then see, does that fix it? Yes or no? And so it takes a minute, and you could, boom, that's all it was, right? There was something weird about that, was like something simple, but it's technical, right? And it's like not, and as it is now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, this looks kind of funny too. I think I'll put that one there too, right? And then the stroke that comes down the A can be turning from, and it looks better already, right? Like, so this is what I always say about auto digitizing. You can quickly get the results, and then it's just a little bit of fussing to get it perfect, right? And at this point, you might be able to say that's good enough. Where does good enough fit in your embroidery vocabulary? Because to me, we're not quite there, and I would question a few more things. First of all, now that I've looked at that A up close, I might like to go and look at some of the other letters and make sure that I like all the ways that they're turning, like that. And to be honest, they look pretty good at this point. But like, I'll show you where I'm a fuss guy. Okay. So look at the M and how this side of the M looks here, but then this one's different. And so I want to do them the same. So now I'm going to come in here again, select my shape, go into that same shape tool. And what I think I need, because it's like turning around it, and what I want to do is right click and add another split line and add it like right there. So I've added another split line to the design. Now, when I right click, it's going to regenerate the stitches again. And this time it splits it here. Only now the problem is the remaining inclination doesn't really explain to the software where the stitching is supposed to go to here, right? So to make this work, I kind of need to zoom in on the spot and go, oh, that's weird. Why don't I move this one here and move that one like there? So I'm telling the software now, if I right click or hit enter, it's going to be like, nice. Hey, so once again, auto digitizing is pretty easy to do. That said, you can fuss over it, I guess is really I think that's the answer, Matt, is just learn the basics, because the more you understand how it works, the more you'll be able to get out of your auto tools. I'll give you an example of where, like, me and the computer are just, I'm smarter, I guess. So here's the leaf, and it's just filled in. It's not wrong, but I've done a lot of leaves, and I've seen a lot of leaves, and we all know that leaves normally have like two sides, and you can add more realism to the design if you break this in half. There would be more than one way to do that, I guess. Here's two quick ways that you could redo the leaves to make them nicer. One of them would be to use your pencil tool up here and like draw the leaf, right? So but when I draw it, I'm going to draw it in such a way that I do it in two pieces, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I'll draw half of it and then like just basically slice down the middle and right click. So I drew a piece of my leaf, and then I'll draw the other side. So same kind of idea. I'm just clicking to go around it. I hold my control key down sometimes to make, like, if this is pointy here and curvy there, then I use the control key to get that line to be, once you've drawn a few shapes, that becomes pretty straightforward and easy to do. So here I just drew two little leaf shapes. Maybe what I can do is kind of move them down a little bit so you can see what I just drew there. So two pieces that have a small overlap down the middle of them, if you will. And basically I can select one of them and convert it into a fill, and then select the other one and convert it into a fill. So now I've got two pieces. And then the trick is, I mean, if you just convert them to fill, they're going to look identical. So what you want to do is use your shape tool and change the stitch direction on one side versus the other. And I always kind of link up their red entry and exit so that it does like one side, and then that kind of connects to the other side. And you give them kind of like, you know, two different kind of contrasting stitch directions. And so, you know, there, I drew it myself, not hard. And now my leaf just looks a little bit more dimensional than the original. And so, I mean, to me, that's not, now we're not even auto digitizing anymore. Right now, you're just learning that sometimes it's just as easy to draw the shapes. To be honest, if we were going to digitize all the words Merry and Christmas, we'd still be drawing shapes. And so it's not wrong to auto digit, you know, whatever gets you to the finish line fastest is the best, right? But you need to learn. So my suggestion is anybody who wants to get more about auto digitizing is to kind of go through the basics. Like I said, I'll send you a link, Matt, some new classes that I did last year, and maybe we can find a way to link them into the club, or we can put them on our YouTube or something. They were ones that I did from my own, like Trevor's workshops, you know, for people that had joined my workshops, but they're really good, I guess, introductory classes for new people that they might enjoy. What else did I do? So I stitched it out because I'm like, that's just who I am. I have to always sort of, everything needs to be stitched out. And yeah, so sometimes after the stitch out, there's a few more edits to do. I think it looks pretty good. I might look at some of the underlays on the letters. The letters weren't as kind of crisp as I wanted them to be. And really, when letters start to sort of sink into the fabric, it's actually the underlay that's going to fix that more than like changing the top stitching. So what I'm saying is underlay is a feature of the software that, you know, again, when you auto digitize, the software chooses the kind of stitch, it chooses the kind of underlay, but you can go in and change them, right? And I think a lot of times people use save to sew because they love to save to sew because they can tell it I'm sewing on fleece, and it can then say, well, on fleece on a satin path, we recommend, you know, a zigzag versus a parallel, or, you know, that kind of thing. And so, you know, that all that said, sometimes when I stitch them out, I'm like, well, the software might have picked this, but now that I'm looking at it, I think it should be that. And that's the point, you know, that's why it's called Floriani Total Control, you know, because we really do allow you, of all the software that you could buy, I think Floriani gives the most sort of fine tuning, if you will. So I hope that was the answer you were looking for.
Yeah,
might be
absolutely.
way more.
I think that's what a lot of those issues are things that people have run into. So yeah, I think that's going to be helpful for a lot of people.
Good. So, I mean, I don't want to make the video too long. It's a big topic, right? Auto digitizing, fixing it. We could talk all day long. Those were kind of some highlights, I think, that I think get people going. At the end of the day, if you pick good, you know, clean clip art, you will get the best results. And if you're trying to take the photograph of your little poodle, that's kind of like the hardest for the software. And that's, you know, the harder the artwork, the more the need to just do it yourself, you know. And that's, you know, when you learn to draw the shapes yourself, you can do your little poodle pretty easy. It's not that hard. So stick with me, we'll learn all about it, you know. Thank you, Matthew, so much for on behalf of everybody that you reach out to. I think that for all the software companies in the world, I think R&K can be really proud of what we do to try and support the people that own our software. And so thank you for what you do to keep that happening.
Absolutely, you're welcome. And I really enjoy talking to everybody and helping them and hoping that I can fix their problem.
Awesome. Well, happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays,
everybody at R&K up here in Canada, where it's good and cold at this time of year.
Right. Absolutely.
This video is coming out like on Christmas Day, I think. So Merry Christmas to everybody who's watching it when it's live. And yeah, Merry Christmas to you, Matthew.
All right. You as well.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.